Hello, everyone, and welcome to TreasHERed, a channel that is meant to inspire, encourage, and empower women around the world. Today, we are still going to talk about the 2020 election, and I have already spoken to the Democrats, the Republicans, and today we have two young minds and the independent voices, and they're here to talk to us about the 2020 election, what they think, why they voted the way they voted, and what issues, matters to them. And today I have Alexis Kwadiete and Alexander Kwadiete. Actually, guess what? They are my kids. So they are my children, and they, young people said, oh, nobody's listening to young people. I'm here. Today we are going to listen to them. We want to hear what they have to say because they are registered independents. And just how I have interviewed Republicans and Democrats, I just want to, find out what's their take about the 2020 election and what played a role in their vote in this past, election and what's important to them. So welcome to the show, Alexis and AJ.
Thanks for having us.
Okay.
Thank you. It's really good to be here. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. So can you tell our viewers, both of you are, young people and vibrant, and you have, a voice as well in the political spectrum. You want to tell us exactly why do you consider yourself as independent? Number one. Number two, what is your take about the just concluded 2020 presidential election? And what swayed your vote as an independent? Because some people said the independent voters, there was a reason why they, voted for Biden. That was also a determining, factor, as well. Because everybody's always trying to get, the votes for the independents. We know that the Democrats, we vote, that way, and the Republicans, we also vote, Republicans. However, the independent vote, they always fight for the independent vote. And tell us exactly, what's your take, number one, and number two, what weighed heavily in your decision this time around in this cycle of election? Anybody can go first. Alexis, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I guess I'll go first.
Okay.
So, your first question is, why do I identify as an independent? I identify as an independent because, first and foremost, my biggest and most important job is to defend the gospel of Jesus Christ, not to identify as a Democrat or a Republican. And so that means that no matter which way the election goes any year, I'm going to vote in a way that I feel like Jesus Christ will be glorified. And I'm going to get all things when voting. And so that also means that on the ballot, you're going to see me voting for Republicans, you're going to see me voting for Democrats. So as I may pick a president that may be a Democrat, I can pick a congresswoman that could be a Republican, I can pick, and in my district, because I live in Orange County, there were about 3 or 4 Congress spots that were up for election. So yeah, I don't vote on party lines. And same thing goes for their views on certain propositions. There's certain parties that support certain propositions. I don't care which way the party is voting. I vote whatever way I believe is right.
I don't think that there's enough compelling evidence to convince me to be registered as a Democrat or register as a Republican. I see value in certain ideas on both sides, but I also think that there's some shenanigans and pandering and stuff going on, and I just don't want people to be deceived. I think
not going on both sides. You mean
I can see why people voted right, correct.
Okay.
And I can see why anyone would have voted however they voted this year, and so I think people shouldn't lose friends over it. They shouldn't get bent out of shape. So that's what I mean when I say I'm politically agnostic. I still vote. I just don't get bent out of shape over whoever's in government.
Yeah. Let me also jump in and say that there is an increasing number of independent voters I think this year's probably had the highest number of independent voters. And reason is because we now have access to a lot of information as people. We have the ability to now go back and research what these particular candidates, the way that they voted in the past, what their past jobs were, what their history is. Before, people that voted before didn't have that kind of opportunity. So people now are now using all of their resources to really, really research into these particular candidates. And so some people are saying that young people are too woke, but no, that's not. We are right where we need to be.
Okay.
Able to see everything very clearly, as we're seeing you for what you are. And that's what makes people so scared of the young people today. And what's funny is that at the end of last year, 2019, when people were praying for the year of 2020, people were saying stuff like, clearly, you know, da-da-da-da-da. It's like, be careful what you pray for, because this saw a lot of things very clearly. We saw things for what they were. We saw people for who they were. We saw Christians for who they were. We saw pastors for who they were. We saw Black people for who they were. We saw white people for who they were. We saw people of all walks of life for who they are, what they really represent. Because people have been saying things this whole time, but now everything is kind of coming to the surface. And that's really, really what 2020 has been about. 2020 vision, you're praying for God to show you things very clearly. Here we are. Everything is very clear.
Okay, and why do you think young people are now more involved? Why were they not involved, you know, before? I mean, before, do you think anything, you know, has influenced, you know, their involvement in this cycle, this time around? You know, why they decided, okay, it's time for us to get involved in time. So what was the determining factor? What actually propelled, you know, that, you know, action for them to not say, okay, yes, I need to now educate myself, you know, about the policies, about, you know, the issues, about who I need to vote for, you know, how I need to vote, you know. So what do you think actually, you know, has really been influential in young people being more involved, you know, now, you know, like especially this 2020 election? Why?
Well, let me first say that in the past, some way, somehow, people were convinced that with the American system, that our vote does not count. I don't know.
Maybe you guys were asleep at that time. Now you guys are woke.
I think when people don't really understand how the system works, and I think when you're in school and they talk to you about things about the electoral college, they don't really go into it in detail. Because if they really went into the American system and how it's structured in detail, I think people would be more open to voting, and they would have, because we all went to the same school. We're all Americans. We all went through the same elementary school, middle school, high school, it's all the same basic curriculum. So it's, as far as I know, I didn't understand how the electoral college worked until this year. And that's the honest truth. And I went to school, I passed elementary school, middle school, high school, and I'm a college graduate. And I just understood this year how the electoral college worked.
Okay, why did it take you so long? And why did you decide now to, okay, no, I need to know how this electoral college works? What was influential, you know, in that aspect? What do you think drove you to say, okay, yeah, I now want to know exactly how the electoral college works?
I want to see a future that I want, not that I'm letting somebody else decide for me. So before we thought that we had no power, right, that our votes don't matter. But when you understand how the electoral college works and you feel empowered, you're like, wow, I can really influence how my future looks. I can really influence who's going to be able to vote for me and make decisions on my behalf. And then you can now also vote in a way that will affect your younger siblings and your future children and your parents, because in the future, your parents are going to need certain things. So you as a young person want to make sure that you're living in a way that can benefit your family, your parents, your future kids, and your friends around you. So yeah, I think before we didn't think we had power, but now when you realize that you do have power and you are empowered, you then want to now look into it deeply on how this thing actually works.
And so why do you think you now have power? Just because, okay, what matters to you, and how you think, because you think is going to affect your future, the future of your parents, the future of those around you. So that was what now, made you say, oh, I need to educate myself about the electoral college so I would know exactly, oh, my vote actually matters. Or were there other factors that came into play, in making that decision? Because a lot of young people, like you said, they don't teach these things in school. Maybe, they do, but apparently, they don't. But how do you educate people about, because some people, they really don't understand the electoral college or how it works. But they have to, what do you have to tell young people about that?
I think, there's an element of people were really relaxed in the 2016 election. They're like, it's fine, stuff. There's no way that, like they figured, oh, well, my state's going to go blue anyway, so, or whatever, or my state's going to go red anyway. So they were like, we can just stay home and not vote. And then the election didn't go the same way as the vote did. And they were like, whoa, we should have actually gotten out there and said something,
Right,
or done something about it. And then also a lot of younger politicians started gaining more like clout and, I don't know, fame, if you want to call politicians famous. And so because they were younger and more able to relate, like, I don't necessarily like this person, but like AOC and her squad, they're all like younger people, and so they can influence other young people to get involved in politics. No matter what you think about them, they do a good job of being relatable, so that therefore younger people will actually do something when the new year rolls around.
Okay, and I also noticed that a lot of young people have very progressive ideas, and oh no, they do. A lot of young people, they have very progressive ideas. And is this how do you think other politicians what do they need to do, in order to, because if you look at the Republican Party, they don't want, they are like, oh my gosh, even people in even the Democrats, they're like, you know what, some people are just too progressive. The progressive wing of the party, they call some of them, the people that AJ just referred to, like Ocasio-Cortez, those people, yeah, they think those people are like, okay, the progressive wing of the party. And then you have and then you also have, the Republicans that say, okay, they don't want this, progressive agenda. Why do young people gravitate towards, progressive ideas?
young people gravitate towards progressive ideas because it's the area in which we're at in life. Mm-hmm. Number one, especially with things on like free education, right? That's a big progressive ideology, free education for all. Mm-hmm. And free healthcare for all. It's another big, progressive ideology that I love. And then they believe in equal rights for everybody. I think the progressive movement is more, obviously the progressive movement, they really, really love Bernie Sanders.
So you don't really have to be a young person, to be able to relate with young people.
You don't have to be. You don't
have to be.
So, nor do you have to be in our social class. Bernie Sanders is not in our social class. And as a matter of fact, I don't even think he was in a lot of people's religion. Didn't he grow up Jewish?
Yeah, he's Jewish. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm a Christian. So it's like, you can't say that, oh, I need to have somebody that's my race, my social class, my this, my that, for me to get what I need, because that's somebody that would have given me what I needed. The reality is that if I don't understand why people think free education is like some type of like
socialism.
Yeah, weird socialism. And like some people feel like it's like some weird socialism, almost gearing borderline between communism. And it's And I think free education is great, and there's other countries that already have that. They have free education in other countries, like other first world
Yeah.
countries that have free education,
Healthcare, free
and they're
healthcare.
fine. They're fine. And like I have a friend that's from Spain, and she doesn't understand why we as Americans are still fighting over whether we should have free healthcare or not.
Yes, okay. So those are the type of things that young people gravitate towards. You know,
Yes.
yes, they want you know, equal rights for everybody, the opportunities, more opportunities. You know, if the education is free, you know, they are more likely to, you know, get that, take advantage of that and go to school, as opposed to, because some of them are actually struggling and they can't, you know, afford, you know, some of you know, these issues. This, I mean, yeah. So talking about social, you know, agenda, you know, for young people, that's really, you know, a big deal. So that's also a driving force, you know, for young people. And, you know, that Bernie Sanders, like Obama was able to relate to young people, and Bernie Sanders was able to do the same. So it's not really a generational gap or generational thing,
No.
but, you know, your ideology and what you support, and, you know, if you are also, you know, relatable, if you are able to relate, you know, to the younger, I mean, younger minds in the
Yeah.
society. Am I
Let
correct?
me let me also say that there are some young people that are influencers and things like that that have certain ideologies that I don't support them, that I would never, or that, you know, want to go into politics. I don't want to name names, but, you know, that want to go into politics, and I would never support them just because they're young. I'm like, I don't support whatever you support. I don't believe whatever you believe. There's a lot of young people saying a lot of nonsense.
Well,
Yep,
okay,
and then they
so
write their own books
that's
about
true.
it.
So where do you draw the line? How do you advise other young people? What should they look out for? You know, so if everybody, you're speaking, another young person is speaking, some are just, you know, like spewing garbage or whatever, and some are not really, you know, making much sense, and some of them, you know, they're saying things that are very sensible. So how do you advise young people in order for them to help them make, you know, a better, you know, informed decision about how, you know, to vote?
Well, I mean, I think in all honesty, you just gotta like listen out for extremism, you know, and like anyone who takes certain issues and turns it into like an us versus them,
Yeah.
or like, you know, it's the culture war, or it's traditionalism versus Marxism, or it's, you know, like, and I think the easiest, or like the most obvious one to look at is like the issue of abortion. You know, like on the one side, people are like, oh, you know, the Democrats, they want third term abortions, they want abortions up to the last day, they want to kill your babies, you know, and all this stuff. And then on the other side, you know, it's like, oh no, the Republicans, they want to restrict your health care, they want to destroy your life, they want to take away your freedom, they anything that makes things like a, oh, there's these people over there and they're the enemy.
Yeah.
If human beings are your enemy, then you've already lost.
Yeah,
Because like,
you're gone.
Okay, so whenever you decide to vote, I need to ask, you know, both of you this. Whenever you decide to vote, do you vote based on the party that has policies and values that align with your policies and your values? You know, is that the determining factor when you are voting, or just the ones that, like, okay, if they have the free education, you know, and free healthcare and all of that, you know, what really, usually you say, okay, this cycle for president, I'm going to vote for, you know, this person based on X, Y, Z. Is it only values? You know, is it because, okay, this person's values, you know, aligns with my values, therefore I'm voting for this person? You may vote, you know, I mean, at the top of the ticket, you know, a certain way, and vote down ballot, you know, a certain way. Is that what usually determining, you know, I mean, is that what drives your decision when you vote as an independent?
For me, it's yes, my values, their policies, their principles, their personality, how they're going to lead our country, whether this person's going to be divisive or not. I'm also Black, so I care about the Black community. So that's another big thing on my list. What is this person going to do for Black people? What is this person going to do about education? What is this person going to do for women? You know, um, those are all the things I take into consideration. It's kind of like a whole approach, like a very holistic approach, and it's a lot to think about. But there's too much at stake to only just pick one thing. To just, you have to take everything into consideration.
Okay. Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
Okay, that's what
like,
I wanted to hear. Go ahead, AJ.
yeah, I think as much as I would love to, you know, vote for someone who held the exact same beliefs as me, you know, that would, like, Jesus is not running for president, you know. So in some ways, no matter what, there's going to be some compromise that has to happen. And there's a lot of Christians that voted for that will vote Democrat a lot of the time because, you know, even though there's some agendas and ideas pushed by the Democratic Party that are African Americans and Latinos who did vote Republican this year, even though the Republican Party, I'm sorry for everyone listening, you know, but it's oftentimes the most dismissive when it comes to issues of racial justice.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to vote for what you like. We can argue about what is best for people, but we can't argue about knowing that whatever is best is what's best. So we need to vote for what we think the whole country holistically needs. People of every color and every religion and every ideology is going to need for in this particular moment in time.